Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Stock Market Today. Ali Corum here with Justin Nielsen, and we're going to break down the action in today's session. And Justin, there was quite a bit of selling into the close today.
Yeah, there certainly was. We'll take a look at some of the bright spots with Tech Resources, Palo Alto Networks, and Arista Networks. But first, we should talk about the market and the way, we all often say it's not the way it opens, it's the way it closes. And man, this was not a good one.
Yeah. So now I'm going to share the NASDAQ composite, but it probably is worth taking a look at the QQQ 5-minute chart. But the NASDAQ composite closed down 0.6% for the day, while the Dow and the S&P 500 lost 0.7%. The Russell 2000 down about 0.3%. But just to illustrate that heavy selling that we saw into the close going on the QQQ 5-minute, which tracks the NASDAQ 100 here, you can just see what happened in the back half of the session.
Yeah, and it was really kind of nothing was spared. A lot of what we were seeing at the beginning of the day, you see that big move up that the Qs had. And really what was happening was there was a lot of the commodity plays. I mean, oil, materials, financials. I mean, that's where a lot of the action was. And of course, the NASDAQ 100 is all non-financial. So that's X'd out of there. But throughout the day, we were just coming lower and lower. And then, as you said, it really accelerated into the close. So what we were initially looking at this morning is the fact that, look, we were filling in that gap. And the Thursday gap up, and even though Thursday didn't close very well, it still was a pretty good gap, a pretty good gain for that day. We undercut it Friday, and now we're undercutting it again today, coming a little bit deeper into that level. And the NASDAQ right now, this chart isn't reflecting how bad it got at the end. It's going to update in a little bit. So yeah, we definitely came down more on the NASDAQ than what's being shown there right now.
Yeah, closing below the close of this day on the 6th here. So definitely filling in that gap, Justin, as you mentioned.
Right. And that seemed like an area where personally, I wanted to see it potentially get some support. The fact that we're kind of losing that level right now does suggest that we could be looking at further weakness. And this is one of the reasons why we've been saying, look, with a market in correction, you need to be more defensive. This isn't the time to be getting aggressive and trying to, swing for the fences. This is where you want to be very cautious. And again, what's been difficult is that there have been these stocks, these pockets of strength that can lure you in and say, look, there's certain stocks here that don't look like there's a problem. But the overall indexes are showing that there is some weakness there, and you've just got to be careful. How good are you at fighting the trend? Going upstream when a lot of the stocks are going the other way.
Right. Well, a quick check on the S&P 500 and Russell 2000. So the S&P here was able to get above that 21-day line, but back below the 4,400 level today, Justin, and came close to its 50-day line late last week, but turning tail, continuing lower.
Yeah, and it's a 50-day moving average line that we were really watching on the S&P 500. The NASDAQ composite seemed like the 21-day was its level of resistance that we needed to get above first. For the S&P 500, it seems like that 50-day. And I would say the same was true of the Dow Jones Industrial Average as well. It seems like that 50-day moving average line is the area that it needs to get above before you consider getting heavily involved with the market again.
Yeah, and I mean, we've talked about a lot of stocks setting up trend line breakouts, and it looks like the S&P is
not there.
Up something, not there yet. Still hitting resistance. And then taking a look at IWM, it's down. It's just been struggling to get some traction.
And this one has been the laggard for a while, but one of the things that we were noting last week is that it seemed like it was at least, getting support at its 200-day moving average line. And it was actually holding above the 50-day moving average line for a while because those moving average lines had kind of coincided with each other and kind of come together. But now today you broke below both of those. So that's not looking great for IWM as well, the Russell 2000.
All right. Well, commodity plays in focus here, and Teck Resources among them with a gain of 3.4% today, breaking out to highs. And Justin, you pointed this out as a mining company that's more diversified, so can move depending on whether it's copper or coal. Got a little diversification in there.
Yeah. So and actually, this is one that Matt Caruso was bringing up on
Mhm.
IBD Live. So it kind of reminded me of this being one of my favorites. And actually, it's they're really kind of trying to shift more towards copper production. They've got some really they want to double their production by 2023 of copper, and they're really seeing it as a renewable energy play as we go more EV cars. They require a lot of copper for all that.
Right.
A lot of the green renewable there's copper that's required for that, but they also are looking at what's necessary for infrastructure. They have steel making coal or metallurgic, that's not easy to say, coal,
No,
the coal that's used to make steel. And steel,
there you go.
we saw all those steel companies do so well
Yeah.
the past few months. And again, for infrastructure, that's one of the things that's going to be required. So I think today we certainly saw a bigger move in copper. You can just take a look at CPER, which is an ETF that kind of tracks the copper area. You see that gap up, and I think that's what was going on with Teck Resources today. But the fact that copper is just getting above that downtrend, or right at it, and Teck is actually breaking out into recent new high territory, I think that just kind of speaks to the strength of Teck Resources. And again, as we mentioned, it does have some diversification, so it's got a number of different ways in which you can benefit from some of these commodity plays.
Yeah, and I think the question is though, do you want to be buying a gap up to highs when market conditions are still on shaky ground?
I would much prefer Matt Caruso's buy on Friday. That was when he brought it up again, as it was just kind of coming back up to those levels. It had that breakout above the 2682 level and just very quickly failed. But a lot of times when we see a stock retake that level, that can be very powerful, and it can have a powerful move from there. But this is still, it's tricky, because while you do have this market that is looking really, in a kind of desperate way here, pulling back away from those moving averages, you do have these pockets of strength. A lot of commodity stocks, a lot of the oil, energy, a lot of those are doing well. So there are these pockets of strength, which again, that can be tempting. You just have to be careful not to go overly exposed, because commodities can be difficult to play.
Yeah, and manage your risk at the end of the day. Let's also talk about Palo Alto Networks gaining 1.4% today, and it showed a 3 weeks tight pattern. So we'll go on over to the weekly chart here. So technically in buy range from a 3 weeks tight.
Right. And so this one is another one that had a big move up off of that last earnings report. And it just seems like a lot of the computer software security stocks are not giving up. If you just take a look, you can see that it's number 9 out of 197. This is a group that hasn't been giving up its leadership position, and Palo Alto is one of those that's heavily weighted in that group because it is a higher price stock, almost at $500. But you take a look at that daily chart, and you ask what correction. That's obviously not happening here. And as a result, you see that the relative strength line, which compares that stock versus the S&P 500, is really skyrocketing. Those are the stocks that we generally like to, focus our attention on. And it looks like it's still kind of right up at that 500 level, and, looking like it's taking it in after hours.
Yeah, you're right, Justin. Even with this pullback to the 21-day line during that time, that relative strength line was on the move higher. So we're always focused on those stocks with those outstanding relative strength lines, and PANW among them.
Yeah. And a lot of people wonder, like, hey, how can that relative strength line be going up when the stock is going down? Well, if it's not going down as much as the market,
Yep.
you're going to get that line going up. And that's what we like to see.
And ANET, Arista Networks, is a stock, Justin, that you highlighted on IBD Live this morning. It ended up with a gain of 1.6% today. And although volume today was a little on the light side, volume to the move higher has been up in recent sessions.
Yeah, and you know what? It doesn't have to be up every day. You know, a lot of times we talk about if you get that initial push of volume, that can be enough to let it coast for a while after that. You know, we always liken it to the rocket, you know, coming off the the launching pad. It needs a lot of fuel to kind of break above the Earth's atmosphere, but once it does, it doesn't need as much fuel. So that volume is your rocket fuel. You like to see some power in the initial move, the initial stages, but then it can coast a little bit. So I'm not too worried about the volume today, but it's certainly, again, another one of those. It got back above the 50-day moving average line. And whereas a lot of the stocks seem to be struggling at that line, like the indexes, the ones that have broken through that line and are showing strength, able to follow up afterwards, especially on a day like today where a lot of stocks fell and lost their gains. This one is kind of going counter to that. Those are the ones that I'm interested in. Doesn't mean I'm necessarily buying these stocks right now.
Right.
But these are the ones that are top on my watch list. So if the market does turn, I'm ready with my watch list.
So, Justin, if we do get a follow through day tomorrow and ANET has another strong day, would you be willing to buy a breakout to highs here, or would you ideally want to see some sort of handle or pullback?
Ideally, I'd like to see some type of pullback. Again, when you have that much of a move that quickly, I mean, that's a 10% move, over a 10% move in just a few days. So I would like to see a little, it doesn't even have to go down that much. It could go sideways, and that would be even better, I think. But I think that would be good for the market indexes too. Look, it doesn't have to just be up or down. We could go sideways here for a little bit, and that could allow more bases to form, more handles to form in these bases, and give us a whole crop of opportunities with new bases being formed.
Yeah, that's a really great point to reiterate, that you want to be prepared for any scenario. So thanks for going over that with us, Justin. And we will have more for you on the market and stocks that are setting up tomorrow morning on IBD Live, where we will be joined by special guest Jason Thompson of O'Neill Global Advisors. So looking forward to having him back on the show. Aren't you, Justin?
Absolutely. I mean, he does such a deep dive. He's you know, we used to call him the robot because he just has such a analytical approach, you know, just unemotional. And that's what you really need to be successful in the market. And he has absolutely shown a lot of success in the market. So it's always good to hear his deep dives on stocks and, you know, his rules that he employs, because again, he's very mechanical in his trading. So it's definitely an inspiration.
Yeah, can't wait to see what stocks are on the top of his watch list right now. So make sure you tune in investors.com/IBD Live tomorrow morning, 10 minutes before the opening bell. We'll see you there, and we'll see you right back here after the close. Thanks for watching.